In this video, we're going to motivate and learn how to use absolute referencing. So to build up an example, I'm going to create a spreadsheet for a fictitious company. Let's call it Bob's Widget Palace. And at Bob's Widget Palace, they sell widgets. They only have one kind of widget. It's the best widget you'd ever want to know. If you don't know what a widget is, it's a generic term for a product used in a lot of business courses. So it's popular in Excel examples as well. So let's just continue that tradition and say that Bob is selling widgets. Now, what we want to do is do a lookup table for the salespeople to know how much to sell the widgets for. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out at, we're going to write a column here for quantity, and let's just put 1, 2, and now we can use our autofill feature and say, oh, let's have up for 10 widgets for sale. All right, and then we're going to say, how much does it cost to sell that many widgets? Now, it turns out that each widget costs exactly $5. So what I could do is I'm going to say equals, and then I'm going to copy this and say multiply that by 5. And I want to format that as a dollar amount. So now, if you recall, if I drag this down, it's now going to show us a nice little lookup table to say how much it costs to sell. One widget is $5. If you want to buy 8 widgets, it's $40. All right. So this is a great example of using the autofill feature, but it's not very robust. And what I mean by robust is it's not very good. What if we decide to change the price of widgets? So tomorrow, all of a sudden, widgets, we can now get them cheaper, and we want to pass the savings on to the customer. So now widgets are $4. So what I'm going to have to do is go in and edit this cell and say that's 4, and now I'm going to have to copy it all the way down. And that's not going to be very effective if we change our price of widgets frequently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say up here, I'm going to say widget price. All right, and I'll make this cell just a little bit wider so we can see everything. And here I'm going to put $5 and mark it off for $5. All right, so now I'm going to say, aha, the cost of a widget is going to be, in this case, that amount, and then I'm going to multiply it by the widget price. Fantastic, a widget is $5. And now when I drag this down, let's see what happens. Whoa, that was unfortunate. So let's try to drill down and find out where we went wrong. So here, let's take a look at my formula. And if I go to edit this formula, it's going to highlight the cells that it's accessing. It says, okay, I'm going to take what's to the left of me, B7, I'm going to multiply that to what a widget costs up in C4. So that looks right. Maybe we look at the next one. That looks incorrect. And now we see where it went wrong. It's taking the cell to the left of us, in this case B8, but now it's trying to get the price of the widget from cell C5, as you can see that highlighted in red. And that is not where the price of the widget is. So what happened was Excel tried to copy the formula down one cell, and in doing so, it also copies the references in the formula. It makes them one bigger as well as we copied it down. Okay, so if we look down at this one down here, we can see what's happening, right? It's now using the value of 140 for the price of a widget. So if we can actually see what's going on, it's saying 10 widgets cost $1,400. That is a crazy price to pay for widgets. So let's fix this problem. All right, your intuition might be, well, let's go back to what we did before and just enter the $5 in the formula directly. But that wasn't very, as we said, robust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a special technique. I'm going to start entering this formula again for scratch, just to be clear. I'm going to say, I'm going to take the one to the left of me. I'm going to multiply it by this cell. But what I want to do is tell Excel that I really want that cell. And if you're going to copy, don't change what it's referencing. Okay, so the fancy term for this is absolute referencing. So I want to say, I want C4, and when you copy me, don't change the value of C4. Keep that constant. The way to do it is you hit the F4 key. I know that's a little confusing, okay? But if I press the F4 key, look what it did. It added dollar signs in front of the C and in front of the 4. Now this is an old convention going back to the early days of spreadsheets, and it's done for consistency. It's a little bit of an awkward notation, but I'll explain it and motivate it a bit more later. But what this does is say, okay, I absolutely want C4. So I put $C, $4. You can type that directly. You don't need to use the F4 key. So I could just type, in this case, I wanted B7 times $C, $4. And it'll work just as well. So you can type in those dollar signs yourself. But if you know the keyboard shortcut of pressing F4, at least in Windows, that will save you a lot of trouble. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this cell down, and we can see everything is working as we expect. If I look down at the very bottom cell, it's referencing B16, the cell to the left of me, and it's going back and referencing the original C4 as well. Okay, fantastic. Now, if we want to change our widget price, we can just go and say, oh, widget's now $4.25. Fantastic. And our table updates automatically. So this is our first example of using absolute references. It really helps when you're filling in cells or copying and pasting cells to tell Excel exactly how you want to handle a reference to a cell. Now let's take a look at this notation we used again. And again, the dollar signs in front of the C and in front of the 4 here, and tell it to use that absolute reference of C4. Now let's expand Bob's Widget Palace. What happens is we have some customers who can get a customer discount. So what we want to do now is based on the customer discount level, we can tell them how much their widgets are going to cost. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 10% discount, 15% discount, 20% discount, and 25% discount. All right, and what we'll do is we'll just make a little bit of space here, and I'm going to say discount level. All right, so now we can look at what our customers are doing. So to calculate how much one widget would cost at a discount level of 10%. So what I'm going to say is okay, it's going to be 1 times the widget price, and I want to make sure I make that absolute reference, so I'm going to put the dollar signs in front, and then I'm going to multiply it by 1 minus the discount. All right, so that's the way I'm going to calculate 10% off. We could say, okay, great. Now your widget's going to cost $3.825. Of course, we're going to make it a dollar amount and do the rounding automatically for display purposes. Okay, so now let's copy this down. Oh, that didn't work. We had the same problem we had before. And now it's going to cost, what is that, $4 quadrillion for a widget? That does not look good. So we forgot to use absolute referencing. So let's modify our cell and say, no, I want to use D7 here. That's the one I want to use. And so when I copy it down, it's going to now appropriately not change that value, and everything looks a little better now. All right, so that looks great. So now let's copy this cell and fill in the entire table. So let's go to here and fill in this whole table. And now we've encountered another problem. Those numbers do not look right at all. If you're getting a 25% discount, one widget should not cost $62. So what went wrong here? Well, let's take a look at what my original cell is using. It's using quantity of 1, that looks good, discount level of 10%, and widget price of $4.25. So that looks good. All right, so let's take a look at this cell right here. What is it referencing? Oh, it's using a discount level of 10%. It's using a quantity of $4.25, where we still want the quantity to remain at 1. So that didn't work out very well. So as I copied it to the right, 2 things went wrong. First, as I copied it to the right, instead of keeping the quantity that we wanted, it moved the quantity reference over, so that's not great. And the 10% stayed the same. So that's not great either. So let's see if we can fix this. So what we're going to do is investigate a little bit more about how those dollar signs really work. So let's just focus on the quantity first. Okay, so what I don't want to do is say, hey, I absolutely want quantity 1, because that won't work when I carry the cell down, because all of those cells are now going to be referencing the quantity as 1. What I want to do is tell it that when I copy this cell, I want you to keep the column the same, but it's okay to change the row. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I want to keep the column the same, but don't keep the row the same. So in this case, I'm only going to put the $ in front of the B. When I only put $1 in, it says, okay, whatever the $ is in front of, keep that the same. So in this case, I now say, okay, keep the column to be B, but it's okay to change the number. It's okay to change the row. So now when I copy the cell down here, it's still working correctly. And now what I can do is also fix the problem with the discount level. In this case, I want to say, okay, keep the row the same, but it's okay to use a different column. So now when I copy this formula this way, it's going to work. And then when I come all the way down, fantastic. The entire table is now complete. So if I look at the very bottom right-hand corner cell, we can make sure everything aligns properly and everything's being calculated properly. And it looks good. It's using the quantity of 10. That's what we want. It's using the widget price of $4.25 located at C4. And it's using the correct discount level, which is located at G7. So by carefully using the right $ in the right places, it will make our life a lot easier when we cut and paste or we autofill our cell contents in our Excel spreadsheets. So to recap, a $ means we're using absolute referencing. If you use 2 $, then it says always use that cell. If we use only $1, then it matters where the $ goes. If you put the $ in front of the letter, that means keep the column the same. If we put the $ in front of the number, it means keep the row the same when you're copying this cell. And that is how absolute referencing works.